Great, thanks, Maeve. So, having heard about the benefits of why you might want to do an IPD meta-analysis, I'm going to go through how you can actually approach the analysis. So to do so, I'd like to suppose that in our review of skincare intervention and the prevention of eczema, we've been able to collect 3 data sets from 3 studies. So we've just got an extract of some example data here that I've made up just for the purpose of this. The data for the first study is in red, and we can see the variables collected include study ID, patient ID, sex, eczema, and the treatment. The data for the second study is in green, and the third study is in blue. Now, to do the analysis, there are actually 2 broad statistical approaches you can take. There's the 1-stage approach or the 2-stage approach. So I'm just going to start by outlining the 2-stage IPD meta-analysis approach. Now, as the name suggests, the analysis is split into a 2-stage process. So in stage 1, we'll analyse each data set separately using the same analysis model of interest appropriate to your type of data. So this will provide us with one treatment effect and estimate of variance for each study. Then in stage 2, we'll combine those treatment effects using standard meta-analysis methods. So we'll form the overall treatment effect as some sort of weighted average of all the treatment effects. And typically, the treatment effects will be weighted by the inverse of the variance for each study. Now, as in standard meta-analysis, we can use either a fixed effect model to do so, and this will assume each study is estimating the exact same intervention effect. Or we might want to use a random effects model, which assumes the studies are not estimating the exact same intervention effect, but we allow for variability in the intervention effect being estimated. So, for example, in SkyPad, in stage 1, we can, for each study, use a binomial regression model to obtain the relative risk for eczema for having a skincare intervention adjusted for sex and family history. And so we'd fit this to each separate data set, and so in our example here, we'd get 3 estimates of relative risk. And then in stage 2, we can pool these using a random effects model to get our overall estimate of relative risk for eczema based on the skincare intervention. I hope you can see that this stage 2 just really does mirror the traditional meta-analysis approach. The difference is we've been able to analyse each study using a consistent model, and that model is of interest to us, so we know we're comparing sort of the same treatment effects here. So the benefits of this approach is that actually it's quite simple to do. It employs traditional, familiar meta-analysis methods. So you can readily implement the analysis in standard statistical software. Now, stage 1, you won't be able to do in RevPlan, but you can do stage 1 in a statistical package like Stata, and then you can do the stage 2 bit in RevPlan if you so wish to, or you can continue the analysis in another package. And when you do 2-stage IPD meta-analysis, you can immediately get the treatment effects of each study, as well as your overall treatment effects display on the forest plot, like the generic one we've got on the left-hand side there, which is nice. Also, when you do a 2-stage approach, it's quite straightforward to include aggregate data for trials where IPD is not available. So this is quite desirable, as actually we might have had a 4th study that we identified as important to include, but they weren't able to provide us with the individual patient data. If we can know the relative risk of eczema from that study for the intervention, we can just include it in the stage 2. Now, a disadvantage of this approach is that actually you're reducing the patient information to study level summaries in your stage 2 analysis. And actually, stage 2 analysis might be a poor approximation if you've got rare numbers of events. So these disadvantages aren't experienced by the alternative approach to IPD meta-analysis, which is known as the 1-stage approach. Here, essentially you just create one large data set, where each data set will be stacked on top of the other, and then you'll just fit one analysis model to the entire collection of individual patient data, and that model will just be appropriate to the type of data you're working with. Now, crucially, if you do adopt this approach, you must adjust the study in your one analysis model. This is because your patient outcomes will be correlated within the study. So if you don't allow for the study, the actual variance of your treatment effect will be incorrect when you just estimate it from your one model, which means that your confidence interval for your overall correct and p-value won't be right. So for example, if we took a 1-stage approach for our SkyPad review, so we've got a binary outcome here of eczema, we could fit one binomial regression model to our entire collection of data to obtain the pooled relative risk for eczema for the treatment directly. And as I said, it's important that we would adjust the study in this model. Now, we can adjust the study using either a fixed study effect, which just assumes a fixed difference in the baseline response of for each study, or we can include study as a random effect, and where we're simply allowing the variability in the baseline risk. This might be more appropriate if you've got lots of studies in your review. Now, in our one model, we can include the treatment effect as a fixed effect, assuming that all the studies are estimating the exact same intervention effect, akin to a fixed effects meta-analysis in the two-stage approach. Or we can also incorporate treatment as a random effect, allowing for variability in the treatment effect, akin to the random effects model in the two-stage approach. Now, so the benefits of the one-stage approach is that actually you do have greater potential for more flexible multi-parameter modelling. There's also potential that with small numbers of events you might get a more exact result as you're combining all the data into one model rather than splitting it up over studies. Now, traditionally the two-stage approach has been more popular, but now the one-stage approach is gaining in popularity as it can also be implemented in standard statistical packages. Now, you can't do this in Redland, so you'd have to do this entirely independently in a package such as data, but you can do most quite complex models in statistical software now. Also, it's possible to combine IPD and non-IPD in a one-stage approach. However, this does require quite careful model specifications, so you'll really need to sort of carefully think how you're forming your model. It's not quite so straightforward to include the aggregate data. Another disadvantage of the one-stage approach is that actually there is more opportunity to go wrong. Firstly, you should not ignore clustering by study, but also you need to really sort of make sure you are fitting the right model. And again, whilst there is a wealth of fitting more complex models, you might actually face computational difficulties, so you might not be able to fit the model of interest. Another disadvantage is that individual study effects aren't immediately available from the one-stage approach. They can calculate them, but it just involves a few more steps where you need to sort of carefully put these together. So, given that there are two stages, two different approaches to the analysis, which should you adopt? Well, there's a wealth of research out there that actually indicates in most cases you'll get similar results, regardless of what method you choose. Now, where differences are reported, this is probably found because researchers have either knowingly or unknowingly made different modelling assumptions. So, for example, you might have done a two-stage analysis and used a fixed effect meta-analysis model, but you might then replicate the analysis as a one-stage approach, but not allow for a random treatment effect there, so then you would get differences. Or researchers might have used different estimation methods and methods to arrive at confidence intervals, which is why there's differences there. Now, I won't go into all the details, but there's a great paper for anyone who's interested more about the difference between the one-stage and two approach by Berkettel in Statistics in Medicine. Generally, where assumption and estimation methods do not vary, and the two approaches will give you similar results. So the general recommendation is that the analysis is free to fit whatever is the most convenient model for you. Now, in SkyPad, because we'll be utilising both prospective and retrospective data. Now, we hope all trials will be able to provide us with the individual patient data, but there's a potential that not all will. And we've pre-specified that our primary meta-analysis will include all IPD where it's available, but we will also include aggregate data where we can't get hold of the IPD to avoid availability bias. This is what we touched on earlier, so it's the bias that can occur if you're not sort of including all the studies just because they haven't been able to provide you with the data. So we've decided to adopt a two-stage approach, so we can readily incorporate IPD and non-IPD, and we'll also have individual study effects immediately available for our forest plot. And then also, the two-stage approach will help us with our analysis where we want to look to see if there's any difference in the treatment effect between individuals with different characteristics, which is the next slide that I'll go into, which is on subgroup analysis. So, as May said, often you may be interested not only in the overall average treatment effect, but you might be interested in ravelling the factors which cause some patients to respond better to treatment. So, for example, we're interested in knowing whether patients with a high or a low or normal risk for ATP have a better response to treatment with skincare interventions. Now, access to individual patient data enables the impact of individual patient characteristics on the treatment effect to be assessed. Now, this wouldn't be possible without the IPD. Now, the analysis again can be done in a two-stage approach. So here, when we're doing a subgroup analysis, we're looking to see if there's any differences in the treatment effect between patients with different characteristics. We're looking to see whether there's any interaction effects between the treatment effect and characteristics. So in a two-stage approach, we can estimate the interaction between our covariate of interest and the treatment effect in each study separately. Then in the stage 2, just pool our interaction effects using standard meta-analysis methods. Or we can do a one-stage approach where we fit our one large model and include that treatment by covariate interaction. Now, in SkyPad, another reason why we've gone for the two-stage approach is that actually if you do the one-stage approach here with treatment by covariate interaction and have individual patient data and non-individual patient data, that gets very tricky. So with individual patient data, we also have the potential to estimate not only the effect of allocation to intervention, which is typically what is reported in randomised controlled trials. So this is what an intention to treat analysis estimates. But we also have the potential to estimate alternative estimands of interest. Now, by estimands, I just mean just alternative definitions of treatment effects. So, for example, we might actually be interested in also knowing the treatment effect in individuals who start and comply with the treatment effect. Now, the newly published ICH E9R1 addendum on estimands and sensitivity analysis in clinical trials to the guideline on statistical principles for clinical trials has brought estimation of other estimands into sharp focus in the clinical trial arena. We see no reason why this can't translate into the meta-analysis arena, and we can pull alternative treatment estimands of interest to get a more fuller picture of the benefits of the treatments that we're interested in examining. So following the two-stage approach to analysis, simply we could estimate the alternative estimand of interest for each trial separately, and then in stage 2, just pool these alternative estimands of interest using standard meta-analysis methods. So just as an example, in our SkyPad review, we plan for each trial to estimate the complier average causal effect. So this is known as CASE for short. So in brief, this really is just an estimate of the treatment effect for individuals who comply and take the treatment effect as intended. But in particular, it's a statistically valid estimate, as the analysis that's done to estimate the CASE effect includes all randomised patients. So this contrasts with a per-protocol analysis, which actually excludes all individuals who don't comply entirely. Now, a per-protocol analysis can be biased because actually the compliers and non-compliers might have had different baseline characteristics. So actually it's the complier average causal effect that's really of interest here. Now, just in brief, we can estimate this in each trial using instrumental variable analysis methods. Randomisation is used as an instrument for the intervention received, and because we've got a binary outcome, we can use a two-stage residual estimator approach to estimate this. Now, of course, to do such an analysis, it does require the trials to provide compliance data, and we also need to define what makes a complier. So we've had some careful thought about this, and it's probably not all the trials will be able to provide that, but we're hoping that a subset will, and we know definitely a few will. And then in stage 2, we will just pool these alternative case effects using a random effects model to really get a pooled view of what the treatment effect is for individuals who comply.
2-minute warnings.
So in SkyPad, as I said, we need a definition of a complier. We're going to define an individual as a complier, someone who completes more than 80% of the prescribed intervention, and we'll compare the pooled case effect against the intention to treat primary analysis estimate of the trials that can provide this. But we will also explore the impact of different thresholds for defining compliance, because this might show some interesting results of what compliance actually is sort of required. So just as a quick example, just to show you, this isn't in skin, but a recent review of trials of epidural anesthesia in labour actually found that the intention to treat meta-analysis underestimated the effect of receiving the treatment. So when they did a case analysis using instrumental variable methods, the pooled effect was 1.37 with a p-value of 0.09, whereas the intention to treat estimate was lower at 1.19 and a p-value of 0.16. So it can be useful to gain some additional insight there. So the last point I just want to talk about on the statistical analysis of individual patient data meta-analysis is on sensitivity analysis. So sensitivity analysis is just defined as a repeat of the primary analysis, substituting unclear decisions or ranges of values for decisions that were arbitrary or unclear. Now we found that when doing an IPD meta-analysis, the key decision will be required on whether you do want to include IPD only or non-IPD data as well as the IPD. So you need to really just carefully think about whether you'll have availability bias if you don't include the aggregate data. But you also need to think about whether the aggregate data will be of an adequate quality to combine with your IPD, and whether those studies will be reporting comparable outcomes and summaries. Now, the appropriate approach should be context-specific, but whichever approach you take, either including or excluding non-IPD in the primary analysis, sensitivity is recommended to look around the other way. So, just in conclusion, IPD meta-analysis is the current gold standard approach to meta-analysis to definitively answer a clinical question. We see it enables you to verify individual study results. Results of poorly reported studies can be calculated. You can use standard statistical methods. You have the potential to estimate subgroup analysis, the potential to do subgroup analysis and estimate alternative estimands or treatment effects of interest. Some statistical methods have been developed, but of course, doing such an analysis is time and resource intensive.